Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chiefs Kingdom. Welcome to the Chiefs Digest Live Q&A. I am chuckling to begin because Luttrell, one of our longtime favorite every weekly visitors I saw, said my favorite show that starts at 7 p.m. Central on the dot. It was close. It was so close, Luttrell, tonight to starting at 7 o'clock because I was ready to go. I was all set, had my drink, everything ready, was ready to hit live. And then I thought, am I going to make it 90 to 120 minutes without a personal break? Might not. So there you go. Now you know I'm ready for the long haul. So there you go. And talked to Nick earlier today. Nick did hit the high V. So, yes, he has been to the grocery store. So he will be here in a timely manner and won't have to leave early. So we'll get all of your questions answered until the very, very end. Brenda, appreciate your comments. Enjoyed the 41 is the Mike Sunday with the signings and the cap info that your head is spinning with all the millions of dollars being paid and who was being kept, and glad it's not you to decide. Me too. I mean, it gets really difficult when you start diving into the nuts and bolts of trying to build an NFL roster and who you're going to keep and who you're not. And especially, I think about it from all these guys' standpoints and the men and women who are working this organization. For a lot of us, it's easy. As far as fans, I mean, you certainly have an investment in rooting for these players, but at the same time, think about it. When you're Brett Veach, you're Andy Reid. I mean, you draft a player, you build them up, you work with them for 4 years. You work with anybody you work with for 4 years, and you think about the idea of having to reach a point was like, well, am I going to pay you or am I not? Am I going to let you go somewhere else? I mean, it's hard. You build relationships with these people. You build relationships with their families. You see them, get married, have kids, all these things. And there's so much more that goes into it beyond the dollars. And, we don't hardly ever get a chance to really talk about that aspect of it. And, the off season is probably one of those. I may have to put it down for maybe next year's off season to see if we can get a player to come in and talk about that, and maybe even somebody from the organization to talk about that, because I think it's something that gets glossed over, and sometimes it's not the ultimate deciding factor because these players have short careers and they're going to go where the money is. I mean, it's hard when you have this short of a professional career to make a decision based on where you want your kids to go to school, or based on loyalty, or based on the fact that you enjoy working with the people that you work with, and not having to base it on, what, I've got 6 years to play in the NFL and this team over here is going to pay me $2 million more a year. Maybe I can't miss out on making, $6 million over 3 years more than somebody else is willing to pay me for the rest of my life. I mean, those things go into it too. So it's not just for me, the dollars and the cents, Brenda. I mean, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, there's so much more to it. And if you did not, I encourage you to go check out this week's 41 is the Mike, because Nick and I went through not just this year's free agent class, not just the current free agents that the Chiefs can sign that we're all talking about, like the Creed, Humphrey, Trey Smith, Nick Bolton trio, but also talking about what would be involved in keeping Harrison Butker, Justin Reed, you name it. We get into all of them and then start looking at the future, because it's not too long. It's January. People, January is when the Chiefs can start negotiating extensions with the 2022 draft class, and can start negotiating extensions with George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie. By February, they're going to have to make a decision about picking up the fifth-year options on those guys. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's going on in the short term. The next 18 months are going to be a lot of decisions to be made by this organization as far as how much money that they're going to spend on some key players that are coming up and reaching free agency. So it was a great conversation Nick and I had. We had a lot of fun doing it. I think it was really informative. So if you have any questions about contracts and the extensions and the players, of what they might be getting, what they should be in the market for, and I will tell you, you look at the numbers for Trey Smith in particular. Trey Smith, I think, of Trey, Creed, and Nick, Trey is in the best possible position as far as making a big payday. If he has a good year and he's healthy, he is in a position to make more than both those guys. And that's just a reality of the NFL market and the positions and where things are at. Doesn't mean that things can't happen. But Trey's in a really great spot. You got to feel good for him after everything that he went through health wise, and and then comes into the league as a 6th round pick, was this close to maybe being an undrafted player completely. And now to be on the brink of maybe being able to get a big contract, that's a neat deal for a guy like that. And having got to know Trey a little bit, that's going to be hard. I mean, I've probably gotten to know him a little bit more than maybe some of the other players. I spent a lot of time in the offensive line room area of the locker room. So, that comes back into it. When I talk about, being hard to say goodbye to players, I get it, because Trey's been one of those players that's been a lot of fun to cover. Has always been very open with the media and reporters, and always been a great quote. So gotten a lot of respect for him. So certainly from a selfish standpoint, I hope the Chiefs are able to keep him around. But from a financial standpoint, I get it. I mean, he's got a chance to make a ton of money. So you never know what can happen there. There's not a ton necessarily to talk about right now as far as breaking news, anything off the top of the show. So I'm going to get into all your questions here in a little bit. Not a ton of breaking news either to get into. I mean, this is the week when people are finally, as I talked about, starting to get back into the office, and that's for people in the front office, agents. The players are slowly trickling back in from vacation. There will be a lot, especially the veterans that still have another 10, 11 days before they report. So, I know Travis Kelce's planning on being in Lake Tahoe in the Celebrity Golf Tournament. Don't know about Patrick. I hadn't seen him on the list, so I don't know if he's not attending that this year. I know Jason is planning on being there with Travis, so maybe he's going to be playing with him instead of Patrick this year. So you're starting to see all of that come to an end. Everybody's kind of getting back into the grind. Wednesday is when the Chiefs are packing up their luggage and sending all their equipment and everything that they need up to St. Joe to start unpacking. So this week has been the big week for the equipment managers and Alan Wright and his guys. They are the ones getting ready to pack everything up ahead to St. Joe. So look forward to the annual B-roll and videos of with Alan on Wednesday that you get to see talking about the packing up process and hitting the road and driving up to St. Joe. You'll see if you live near I-29, you will see the trucks hauling up the interstate and up that direction. So it's once again the rite of passage for training camp is, of course, the packing day, and I always enjoy talking to Alan and getting to see the whole process. So that's kind of Wednesday's story. There were 2 questions that had popped up recently, and I may start trying to keep track of this and do this, because every once in a while, all of you ask questions that I don't have the answers to or can't remember off the top of my head. So there was a couple of them that I went out and did look up last week, and I once again I should write this down so that I remember who asked the question. But someone in the Q&A asked last week about players and regarding what other activities they're allowed to do and how it's written into contracts. And I pulled up the stock contract, the base template contract that teams use with all players. For a lot of players, is the one that they just sign verbatim. It's really more for star players with more complicated contracts that will have addendums to them and a lot more to it. But this is the base template contract that all teams sign with their players. And if I had thought ahead, I would have had this so I could put it up on screen. But specifically was about other activities that players are prohibited from doing. And here's the language specifically that makes it as clear as mud. Let's see, without prior written consent of the club, player will not play football or engage in activities related to football otherwise than for club, or engage in any activity other than football, which may involve a significant risk of personal injury. So the only thing that the base template contract for an NFL player, as far as outside activities, and hey, on your vacation, you might be some of the guys might be shark diving or skydiving jumping off reefs. I don't know, anything you want to come up with, riding motorcycles, anything. The base contract, the only thing it specifically says is that other than football, which may involve a significant risk of personal injury. So, I mean, if you get into that situation, that's when you're going to have the legal discussion, and there will be lawyers, as Andrew Brandt would say, about trying to figure out, hey, who's responsible for what. But basically, players are simply enjoined from participating in any activity that's designed as having significant risk. And so that's why, there's a lot of things that would go into just simply saying, hey, you can't do this. You can't be driving maybe a race car. You can't be riding. Motorcycles might fit into that. And certainly some off-road vehicles, I think, would probably fit into that. I mean, it's anything that involves significant risk. And so obviously high-risk activities would fit into that. What doesn't necessarily fit in is that, activities that aren't defined as high risk and are not football. I mean, basically players can't play football, do any football activities without the team's permission. So they're supposed to be getting the team's permission even when they do like their player camps. And I'm assuming that most of them do. I mean, maybe they don't. Maybe it's just an unwritten rule and the teams don't require them to get a waiver or anything of that nature. But technically by the letter of the contract, I mean, even for holding their football camps, they're supposed to be getting an exemption or at least a written permission from the team to do that. Sports like basketball, not considered high risk, but some players, like Mahomes, do have it specified in their contract that they can't play basketball. There's probably a lot of, high-profile star players that have those kind of designations. So hopefully that at least answers one question. And there was another question that was also, related to the player group contract. And this came up a couple of weeks ago, I think, when we were having the conversation about players wanting to opt out of the NFLPA licensing. And my recollection was that it was now folded into the NFL contract that you basically had to. And yes, I mean, the base NFL contract, I did find it does assign, the player does assign their licensing rights to the NFLPA and any of their subsidiaries. And for anything and everything, it specifies name, nickname, initials, autograph, including facsimiles, voice, picture, photograph, animation, image, likeness, persona, jersey number, statistics, data, copyrights, biological information, and other personal indicia. It's everything. And it also made me realize one thing that because I go to my grocery store, Hy-Vee once again, and I will see a lot of the posters in there that have Chiefs players, and there's some in there that have beer sponsorship. And it's been in the back of my mind before because, as you know, with the Mahomes and the recent, Bud Light commercials and the fact that, that players can't technically endorse beer products as their current NFL players. I mean, they can have those deals after they retire, but they can't do it while they're an active player. But the beer companies that are sponsors of the NFL and the teams can get the licensing of players from the NFLPA and use those. So when you've seen like the Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes bobbleheads, and if you see the posters and signage, and and some of the I know the grocery stores and some of the beer companies have placed them at other places as well. All of those don't go through the player; they go through the NFLPA and go through the Chiefs as either an official sponsor of the Chiefs or the NFL as an official sponsor of the NFL. And they get those licensing from the NFLPA. So technically the money for all that just goes to all the players in general. If it goes to the NFLPA, then it gets spread out amongst all the players. But that's kind of the loophole for that. And it does answer the question you had, which is, if you're an NFL player, can you opt out of the NFLPA? It's a lot more difficult than it used to be. Because it's going to have to require the team to withdraw that language from the base player template contract. And I don't know of any teams that have, either one, I guess, been asked to do it, or two have actually conceded to do it. I mean, the one instance this year, it sounds like that showdown got eliminated, and the player went ahead and decided to go ahead and sign with the NFLPA licensing. But whereas once upon a time you had to sign a separate agreement for the NFLPA, and so there was a lot of players who did opt out, it's no longer that way. It is part of the standard NFL contract, and that's why a lot of them end up in the NFLPA. So that's my long-winded answer to that. Now it's all your questions for tonight. So we've eliminated all the questions and answers from the past. I expect we'll see Nick in here in a little bit and let me catch my breath because I've talked way too much already. Yes, as you noted, Cody, I was over talking with Ryan Tracy over Locked On Chiefs. It was always a great conversation with Ryan, so we had a lot of fun. Justin, you had a dream that the Chiefs lost in week 2 to the Ravens? Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare to me. Come on, Justin. No, I have not seen this, Cody. You're saying that the Xavier Worthy McCole Hardman anti-speeding ads, is that real? I'm going to have to check that out. So I have not seen that. So I will have to check that out. Justin, since the Chiefs drafted a center this year, does that worry that the Chiefs might not re-sign Creed? I think it's absolutely insurance, Justin. It absolutely is. The fact that you draft Hunter Norzad to me is absolutely an indication that you're looking for the possibility you might have to replace anybody in that front three and in the interior. Justin, Nick and I talked about on Sunday, Justin, on the 41 is the mic. I think Creed's going to be the easiest to re-sign because he's the one that you could logically and easiest offer the highest paid contract at his position to, and it would not be a bad contract. It would be affordable. And I think he is the easiest of that trio to keep. But if it doesn't work out that way and you can't get a deal done, which has happened, you never know. Maybe Creed will want to go somewhere else. Maybe someone's going to offer him a deal that's too good to refuse. You have to be ready for anything and everything. I think Hunter Norzad is a player that can play any of those three positions. For that matter, I think Creed Humphrey can play any of those three positions. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be in a spot where they're thinking to themselves, hey, let's move Creed. Maybe the sneaky thing to do would be to make Creed the highest paid center in the league and then move him to guard where he would be not one of the highest paid guards in the league. If he could make $15 million at center, and there's still going to be 10 guards or more making more money than him per year. So there's some sneakiness that could be. I don't think the Chiefs would do that. I really don't. I don't think that they would sign him to a below market deal at center. Even if it was a record setting deal for a center, and then move him to guard where he would be below market. I don't think they would do anything like that. But if you're worried about losing Creed, Hunter Norzad's a great draft pick because not only could he replace Creed, but if he doesn't, if you keep Creed, Hunter Norzad's going to be a fine guard. I don't think there's any problems about that. So I wouldn't have any concerns. Ethan, since Winchester is approaching 35, how much longer do you expect him to stay with the organization, and what would be the replacement plan? Yeah, I think especially, with the 1-year deal extension this year, I haven't talked specifically to James about this in a while. I talked to him at the end of the season, during the postseason run, and during Super Bowl week. And, at that point that there hadn't been any talk and discussions. It was going to be after the season when they did talk about an extension. But it seemed like both sides were fairly, happy with the possibility of just a 1-year deal at this point and just go year by year to see how much longer he's got. Yeah. Hey, long snapper is one of those positions where you can play a little bit longer. There's been some guys who have played into their late 30s. It's a different position. So yeah, you can get away with some things there. How much longer? I think it's going to be up to two things. It's going to be as long as his performance stays as strong as it's been, and two, as long as he wants to keep doing it. I certainly think he's got a few more years left in him if he wants to keep doing it and keep playing. Does a great job keeping himself in shape. He's a pretty athletic guy on top of that. You think of it, he was a wide receiver in college and high school. Was a walk-on at wide receiver at Oklahoma. So he's not a stiff offensive lineman body or anything. James is a decent athlete. So I think he could stick around for a little while. As far as the replacement plan, not sure there really is one. I am fairly certain they've been scouting long snappers the last few years, looking at who's coming out of the draft, who could be interesting. If they needed to invite some guys to camp and tryouts, who would it be? They did, I think, this year at least have somebody in the rookie mini camp that had been a long snapper and had some experience. So, they've done things like that and, brought some in, but they haven't, especially it's been a while since they've had any competition. I think the last time that they had another long snapper in camp would have been when Winchester won the job and beat out Andrew East for that job. So I think it's been a while. So I would imagine that some of it, Ethan, has just been behind the scenes. They've been scouting and watching long snappers. I think they're probably ready at any point that James says he's ready to hang it up. They'll be in a place to have a few names that they're interested in. But I think that's about the extent of it so far. And yes, Luttrell, riding a jet ski, absolutely. I think would probably fit into the category. I'm sure there are players who do it all the time, but I would hate to get injured on a jet ski and then try to explain it to the team. And there's probably been a few who've been hurt on a jet ski and probably said it was something else. So you never know. Oh, Joe, there we go. I missed that. In the history of the NFL, has a rookie drafted in the first, second round been realized their rookie year? Joe, let's see. Oh, the second version released their rookie year. I'm trying to remember. I mean, I'm sure it's happened at some point because it used to be that, scouting was pretty terrible. So I'm sure there is a version at some point in time when it's happened. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember anybody in recent times, however. Maybe somebody else has one. I may have to research this one later to see my Nick's brain and see if he can remember one too. I don't recall anybody that's been that high of a draft pick that got released. I mean, unless there was an off the field issue that I'm just not recalling. But like I said, it's possible that it certainly happened back in the day when, good grief. I mean, there were teams and, the NFL in its early infancy when they were paying so little attention to details. Like one year they drafted a guy, some team drafted a guy who was the wrong name. It was a very similar name to the player they meant to draft, but they drafted a player from another school that wasn't any good. I mean, I think there was even a year that the team drafted a player and then they meant to draft a player with the same name from a different school. Things like that don't happen anymore, but I'm trying to remember. If anybody's got a comment, maybe throw it in there and we can look it up. But I don't remember anyone. I mean, it's like I said, it's maybe it's happened, but I don't remember it happening any time recently. Pano, good to see you once again this week. Can the Chiefs release Thuney now and save some money to bolster the roster with free agents or extensions? Throw Norzak into Thuney's position. It doesn't make any sense right now, Pano. Let me pull up the numbers for you. It makes a lot more sense next offseason because right now the Chiefs are responsible for a lot of Joe Thuney's contract for this year anyway. They'd have to eat it. So they've got, let's see how much. They've got 23.9 million. Let's see. No, I take that back. It's the pre-June 1 number. They got it looks like $22.8 million in dead cap space. So if they wanted to cut Thuney right now, let me make sure I'm hitting that right number there. He'd count 12.9 million towards this year's cap and 10.9 towards next year's cap. If what I'm saying over the cap is correct, that might be even a little bit low. I thought he had more guaranteed than that. Maybe not, because he's got 21.8 in prorated signing bonus remaining. So you would have 10.9 of that hit the cap this year, 10.9 next year. And he's got, $2 million in guaranteed salary. So that would be, he would count 12.9 towards the cap this year, 10.9 towards the cap next year. You would save 14 million in cap this year, 16 million next year. Although, like I said, that $22.8 million, you're 23.8, excuse me, $23.8 million in total dead cap money you're going to eat. I mean, is it possible that you could do that this year? Yeah. I mean, I guess you would save a little bit. I mean, I certainly could. So I can't dismiss it. I mean, his cap number is 26.9 both this year and next year. So, you would save 14 million off this year and 16 million off next year. You could. I mean, I can't say that it's out of the realm of possibility. I would probably be a little surprised, and have to just make sure that there's nothing it's guaranteed towards injury. I know there was some injury guarantees in his contract, and let's see, he earned a guarantee on a salary, which I think was in 2022, but I think that's that $2 million guaranteed. Yeah, he's got $2 million. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could. I mean, you've already guaranteed $2 million of a salary for this year, so that's not a huge loss. I mean, it'd be a mistake. I mean, a $2 million mistake. I mean, that's not a big mistake in the grand scheme of things, but I can't necessarily see the Chiefs doing that. Possible, yes, but I don't think it's likely, especially because at this point, injuries involved too, and with veterans and injuries, that gets a little bit trickier. So it's an interesting question, Pano. I mean, I can't completely dismiss it, though. I know Nick is in the green room, so he will be coming in shortly, but I will wait until as always, the thumbs up from Nick. So, and we have the thumbs up. He's probably been in here for a while. I was looking up the answer to Pono's question, Nick. So how are you tonight?
I'm all right. How about yourself, Matt? Boom, boom. We're good to go.
Boom, boom. Who's got 2 thumbs up and is ready for some questions? This guy.
Matt is.
Anything going on your side of the world? Anything you need to share with us, Nick?
Oh, Matt. Do you want to get me started on my topic of the day?
Hey, we are always here for your rants and topics of the day. You know that.
So something I'll put out there in the Chiefs sphere or whatever. There are certain people that are willing to do original content, that are willing to put in the work, willing to ask the questions that need to be asked, willing to look at the coaches' film they need to. And those are the people that I personally respect, because I know the time they put into it, the sacrifices they may put into it with family, friends, and things of that nature. So, those are the people that, more than anything else, I'm always going to support and I'm always going to root for. But for the problem right now is in the Chiefs sphere is so many people want to take a piece of the pie, but they're listening to so many other people that are putting in original work that they take pieces from other people, or they just take blatantly from other podcasts or people, whatever they may write, and all of those things in that nature. And that, I don't know, that's essentially, to put it bluntly, it can be a version of digital plagiarism. And then on top of that, it's just, I don't know. It's just something that's been irritating me today. And so, yeah, that is what it is on that one. But all I can say is there's a lot of people that work in the Chiefs actual media that I respect, that do a lot of good work and deserve to have their platform for the amount of work that they put into it. For example, I'll mention Matt Derrick here. He's one of them. Works hard, puts in a lot of his own work, and does his thing. And there's a lot of radio guys that do that too. Pretty much mostly all the Chiefs beat writers. I think all the Chiefs beat writers, whenever I start rolling through the Rolodex, or who I consider the Chiefs beat writers. And then the guys like KCSN with Matt, Kent, and then Craig popped in the other day. But I mean, those guys, the tape they watch and the work they put in, I got a ton of respect for them. So that is what I wanted to start out with and get off my chest, because I know it's not a question that's going to be asked, but I don't know. It's a weird time in the internet, and there's a lot of people that don't necessarily want to come up with their own content ideas and do their own work. And that's unfortunate.
Well, we have a lot of content ideas here, Nick, because we're fortunate enough to people come to us with their own content ideas. Here's one for you. Okay, because I said you would probably have a better recollection of your memory than I do. One of the first questions earlier we had tonight was, can you remember a first or a second round pick that got released as a rookie? And I can't remember one.
Not a first or second round. Third round would have been Russell.
Yeah,
Kamari Russell. That one was a stunner. But
I'm just thinking even around the league. I mean, I'm sure it's happened back in the day when the league was terrible and didn't know how to scout, and and you also had like regional picks in the first couple of rounds and everything. So I'm sure it's happened at some point, but I can't remember it being anything in the modern recent draft era.
Not that I can think of. But I mean, like, just for example, from a Chiefs perspective, like Russell's primarily the only one that I can think of off the top of my head in probably the past 20, 25 years. That was like the year of their draft or within a year of them being drafted. Because like if Trezell Jenkins, the first round pick, can get as long as he did, like, I mean, like whether it's Trezell Jenkins, I know John Baldwin, they all still got the time. Baldwin was really more of the fact that he was from the previous regime with Todd Haley versus Andy Reid, and then we're just going to go in a different route for what they wanted for their offense. But yeah, no, I mean that's the only one that comes to mind for the most part whenever I think of the draft classes.
And when you're talking about content, Justin has a great comment here that turned into a question. How dumb is it that the NFL can the Around the NFL podcast? This is probably a good point in that even the NFL has good content, and sometimes they get rid of it, which creates a vacuum that's probably going to be filled by some less than stellar content.
I don't know. I mean, what NFL media's got going on, I think I mean, the way they've kind of reduced NFL Network for the most part, and like right now, I mean, you don't have total access on at 6 p.m. at night. You don't have Good Morning Football on yet, and then Good Morning Football is going to have syndication starting this fall for an hour or two. That's going to air in certain areas, and then they'll have their normal on NFL Network. But I mean, they don't like NFL Total Access was their staple show. Like that was the original thing that started from when they started NFL Network. And that was you could count on that at 6 p.m. every single day, weekday, and then they had it on some weekends. And so I mean, now they're down to what's probably going to be Good Morning Football in the mornings, and we'll see what the new structure of that looks like whenever they reopen in LA in August. And I believe it's during preseason they reopen, is what I had heard for the most part. But yeah, no, I mean like. I don't know what the Around the NFL podcast following was, but I know from the article I read on it, what two of the guys were leaving NFL media. We don't know specifically if that was by choice or they're just going a different way, or if they were told that their jobs were being eliminated. But I don't know. But I mean, yeah, I mean, there's just for better or worse. I mean, there's so much content on a digital landscape that there's just only so many clicks you're going to be able to get, so many views you're going to be able to get, and so many listens you're going to be able to get. And there's only so much original opinion you're going to be able to get out there that, it is what it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I hate it when something actually seems to work. And I know Greg Rosenthal is still going to be involved with what they're going to do going forward. But it sounds like just the whole game that they had working together is not going to be a part of it going forward. And I don't know. Everybody has to make their own decisions, and it's all a business. And I certainly know that the NFL Network is got its own business that it's trying to tend to. But yeah, you just hate to see good shows, good programs, good content go by the wayside. Pano had a question, Nick, and I'm gonna start you off with that because he had a follow-up point to it too. Which was talking about Joe Thuney's contract, because we've talked about the fact that next year Joe Thuney, saves a lot more money walking away from Joe Thuney than keeping him in the last year of his deal for 2025. But with if this is a lingering injury with him, there might be some economics of walking away from Joe Thuney earlier than that, even though you did guarantee $2 million of his salary earlier this year. Looking at it, I mean, he has 12.9 million guaranteed, and I think you could save 14 million this year since the salary cap number is 26.9. I mean, is that even something you think that would be in the Chiefs' mindset, or even something that's on their radar of consideration?
I personally don't think it is right now. Like the only way that I don't think you'd see Joe Thuney on the roster this year was if he had to retire. But I don't think that that's the case, because Joe doesn't strike me as a person that's just going to go out, with a pectoral injury and be done. Personally, I think he's going to try to give it a go and try to see if he can get back to form. And he's a competitor. And I mean, how many Super Bowl rings does that guy have now? Maybe he wants some for the other hand at this point. Because he should have at least one handful at this point, or pretty close to it. Seriously, when it's time with the Patriots and Chiefs combined, like, he should be pretty close to it at this point. I know you're looking it up, so I'm going to stall for you right now.
He doesn't have a Brendan Daly number of rings yet, but he's catching up with him.
Does he almost have a whole hand yet?
Four-time Super Bowl champion.
So he's one away from a full hand. So
one for the thumb is what he needs.
Why would you walk away from not having a full handful of rings? And you make it all on the hand you're gonna shake hands with, so people know, so they can't miss it. No, but yeah, I mean, I fully expect to see him back this year, but I mean, next year, 2025 offseason, I think that's a whole different ball game in terms of what they may need to do just financially to keep somebody like either Creed or Trey or some of the other guys that we talked about on 41 as a mic that they're going to have to make decisions on roster wise.
Yeah, that's the reality of it, is they can create salary cap space, and they may have to create salary cap space with Joe Thuney's contract eventually. They don't have to right now, and I think that they certainly want him to be part of the plans, because without Joe Thuney being part of the plan, you're talking about inserting someone very young into that starting lineup. I mean, Mike Caliendo would probably be the next man up, and not that Mike can't handle it necessarily, but otherwise, I mean, you're talking about maybe a rookie into that. And that's not that it can't be done, but when you're trying to three-peat, you're trying to get one for the thumb, like for Thuney. I mean, I think you want as many of your veterans as you can. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I can't imagine that's, I mean, is it something they have to consider? Sure. I mean, I'm sure it's some, file. There's absolutely that worst case scenario, but I can't imagine it being something that they want to do. This made me chuckle a little bit to myself, Nick, and you'll see why. But Ethan says, do you have an unpopular opinion about the Chiefs receiving core? His is that he doesn't think that Hollywood Brown will be a big factor. I think I see your smile creeping up, because I know that what you're thinking is that you and I have the same unpopular opinion about the Chiefs receiving core.
Whoa. What's your unpopular opinion, Matt, before we go putting words in my mouth, sir?
My unpopular opinion is that Justin Ross might have a hard time making this roster.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people have gotten off that train, or that bandwagon.
I think there's still a lot of Justin Ross fans out there that would not be happy to hear me say that.
I don't know. I mean, we'll find out. Just make a little tease about it, and and I'm sure one of the aggregators.
So I just want to make sure
aggregators will pick it up.
I just want to make sure I'm clearing the field here and everything. Did you have a different unpopular opinion?
I don't have an unpopular opinion. like here's the thing. I just deal in. You
don't have opinions, or none of them are unpopular?
No. Well, I'm gonna have unpopular opinions, but not about this specifically. Like here's how I look at things. I deal in what I see as realities. Like I don't deal in what I see in person at practice or what I see on tape. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm seeing. Like I don't. I'm not out here to deliver hot takes or, and I hate that word whenever people say, "Oh, it's a great take." No, it's an opinion. No. I know that ESPN made that popular with the Embrace Talk Radio in the morning thing that they do and everything, and somehow Stephen A. Smith's going to get paid insanely well for doing it here coming up. And I mean, I'd love to have the money that he's going to get, but I mean, I wouldn't enjoy having to make stuff up just to get attention or to try to upset people and have people want to spit on me when they see me in a grocery store or something like that, just because, that was a terrible, terrible take about the Boston Celtics, something like that. No, thank you. Look, I mean, I think Hollywood Brown is going to be a guy that's going to help stretch the field. I think Xavier Worthy is going to be a guy that helps stretch the field. I think it's going to give, like we've talked about on here many times before, that's going to give Kelsey Rice, maybe Nico Remigio, maybe McCole Hardman, maybe Kadarius Toney, and we could mention Sky Moore. Maybe that'll give them all room to work over the middle or work down the seams or work inside the seams. And that's the purpose, is like it's trying to space things out in the offense. So there's so much more room for activities, if you want to quote Step Brothers. So like that's the purpose. So I mean, whether he has 1,000 yards receiving or that type of stuff, honestly, it doesn't really matter, because the whole purpose is to give people a threat deep that they are concerned about, like they were when Tyreek Hill was still here. Like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they saw enough on tape where like him and Mahomes ain't on the same page. He's not going to run full speed on his route. So like even if Mahomes throws it deep, there's going to be an issue in one or two ways, to where he's either going to drop the ball, he's going to be 5 yards short, and then people are going to claim that Mahomes overthrew him, but when they worked on it 10 times in practice, he probably ran faster than that. Just all those things combined. So that's where I'm at on that one, Matt.
Here, I will expand on my unpopular take in this way, because I'll go into a second unpopular take.
Matt,
but
Julia Gulia, 743, pop it up right now, or 742. 742. Then you can go back to Ethan, but we got a Julia Gulia. See? Right up there. Right there.
That's not an unpopular opinion, Julia. That is a very, very popular, accurate opinion. So
yeah. And I've heard that pop up some other spots too. But we know where it originated from, Matt.
That's right. And we got to get the T-shirts out just so that we can stake our claim ground here.
We got to do copyright and trademark stuff now. That's what we're gonna have to do in this digital wild west.
And Darren piping in also with the unpopular wide receiver opinion. They only hold 5 wide receivers on the opening day, 53 to keep 4 backs and 4 tight ends. Also within the realm of possibility. I don't think that's a bad take at all. I mean, I think it's a reasonable possibility.
Oh, Matt, you said take.
I did say it, and I regretted it immediately, because usually I'm like you. I use the word take, and especially hot take. I use it only in a sarcastic or hyperbolic manner. If I'm talking about somebody else's take and I call it a hot take, I'm probably being sarcastic. If I use it in regard to my own, I'm being hyperbolic, because it means I'm probably getting ready to tell you a hot take that's not really a hot take. But here's
go ahead, you continue, and I'll use my prop in a minute.
I mean, because my unpopular, and why I wanted to kind of expand on my unpopular wide receiver take, is that you talk about being realistic, and that's where I want to come in, because I try to make my opinions about the Chiefs wide receiver room realistic. And that's why I will criticize a little bit some of our colleagues, because I think sometimes we all, whether we work for the team or we work for our own publications, maybe I'm guilty of this too. I don't know if I probably am at times. So I'll plead guilty to it if I'm ever accused of it. But I feel like that occasionally, to tell a good story, we put too much praise and too much acknowledgement on highlights and not enough on the bulk of a player's work and a bulk of who a player is. The last couple of years, Justin Ross was absolutely a victim of that, because I don't think it did Justin Ross any favors whatsoever to put out his highlights, because his highlights were spectacular. His highlights were amazing. None of them, for the most part, any of them happened with pads on. So that's one thing, that if it doesn't happen with pads on, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. It's a fun play to watch, but it's sugar. It's just nothing but sugar. It's not vegetables. It's not eating your fruits and vegetables. So, that's one. And then 2, just putting it in, the context. I mean, Nico Remigio is a victim of that this year. Is Nico Remigio playing fantastic football without the pads on? Yes. Were there days where he was the best receiver on the field? Yes. Were any of those days that he was the best receiver on the field days when Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice were on the field? No, because any day that one of those two guys was out there, he was better. They were better receivers. Nico Remigio wasn't the best receiver on every single day that he was on the field when those two guys weren't out there. And we only saw of the 13 practices. Well, technically there was only 12 practices. And we didn't even see one of those. So of the 12 practices that this team had, we saw 5 of them. I don't know how Nico was in the other 7. Maybe he had some bad days. I don't know. I know he played really, really well. I know that he made some great catches. I know that there were also some plays that wouldn't have been great catches maybe for a guy who was 6'3", but for a guy who's 5'10", they look like great catches because a 6'3" guy might have been able to catch them in stride and not have to elevate for them and those kind of things. I mean, those things factor into it. And this is not a knock on Nico. It is not a knock on Justin Ross. And I will caveat this with saying that, I mean, Nico looks much better and much more confident and much more established right now than, say, Justin Ross did a year ago at this time. But I just, to me, it's if you don't take the good and the bad and you don't give the full picture, then you're not giving the real picture at all. And I think that's just an injustice that happens. And sometimes it goes the other way too. I mean, right now, what becomes a story is that if Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney drops a ball in practice, that's going to be the story. But you're not going to say, hey, Kadarius Toney caught 2 targets or Sky Moore caught 3 targets. It's going to be he dropped the 1. And then everybody's going to say, oh, all he's doing is dropping passes all day. Well, that just fits the narrative, but it's not necessarily the full story. And what I hope that people get here from us is that we try to do the full story. And that's why, from us, at least for me, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, hey, if Nico Remigio has a fantastic year this year, if he has the best year of his life, he has a great season this year, I mean, 400 or 500 yards would be fantastic. I mean, if I told Andy Reid right now and Brett Veach that Nico Remigio was going to have 400 yards this season, they would cash that at the bank right now and take it because that'd be a fantastic year. I mean, that'd be great. But, I mean, there's some, I feel like out there that are like saying, hey, Nico Remigio is going to be like the 3rd best receiver on this team. And it's like, don't put that pressure on the kid. He doesn't deserve to have that pressure on him. Let him best be. End rant.
Good job, Matt. I'm proud of you. Got all.
I got out of my system.
No, I removed the prop I was going to use because it doesn't make sense anymore now.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I completely killed your prop.
It's fine. We're moving forward.
No.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, look, hey, people.
I feel bad.
At the end of the day, Matt, people are going to paint whatever picture they want to paint.
And sometimes it's just whatever picture will get clicks, but I will get off that.
I'll burn.
I'll get off that.
Didn't you hear about the burn? I said a burn, burn, up, burn. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Matt.
Mizzou 19. Would love to hear your predictions for the AFC playoff picture. Who are your 4 division winners and which 3 teams earned a wild card? I'm guessing, Nick, that you're not optimistic about that question.
Do what? What do you mean optimistic?
I just feel like you'd probably say you haven't seen enough yet.
Hold on. If you'll take this, I keep getting contacted right now about family matters.
I mean, I will at least say that, Mizzou, I mean, for me, it's really, really hard to say for sure because we just don't know about these teams, and we'll learn more during the obviously training camp. And I know we need to put ourselves out there, I think, hey, I get the pressure to put ourselves out there, and I'm not trying to duck it. I mean, I have absolutely no problems. Chiefs are going to win the AFC West. I mean, if the Chiefs don't win the AFC West, it's because something significantly bad has gone wrong. I mean, but there's a few other divisions. I mean, the AFC North, Baltimore should win it. I mean, I'm of the philosophy that Cleveland is going to take a step back this year because it seems to be what Cleveland does. They still don't have a quarterback situation figured out. Deshaun Watson is not who Deshaun Watson used to be. I don't know what their situation is going to be. I mean, Pittsburgh is going to be a 9 or a 10 win team probably because that's what Mike Tomlin does. Will Cincinnati be back or not? I don't know if they're going to be back enough to give Baltimore a run for it. They're starting to have some losses on that defense, and we obviously know that their offensive situation is not completely settled yet. what's going to happen in the AFC East. I mean, in the AFC South, I think almost anybody could win that division except for Tennessee, because I just have no faith in Tennessee, even though I know they spent a ton of money on free agency. But I don't think that their new coaching staff might be good. I just don't think it's going to be as good as Mike Vrabel was. To me, Chiefs, Ravens are easy ones for me. I mean, that's obviously barring some injuries. I still think Buffalo probably has enough in the East. The Dolphins should be a playoff team. I think Cincinnati's going to be a playoff team. The South, gosh. See, and my real unpopular take this year, Nick, is that I just feel like the Texans might take a step backwards, but I know that's a very unpopular take, and I could probably be wrong because I was wrong about the Texans last year.
In all fairness, everybody was wrong about the Texans.
Yeah, but I was more specifically wrong about
even the Texans didn't believe in the Texans, Matt.
I don't know. Here's where I continue to have my caveats, because I was not big on CJ Stroud. Mm-hmm. I'm still not big on CJ Stroud because I keep getting told how great he was, but he was a really good game manager last year. I mean, it wasn't like he was Mahomesing the league or anything. He was game managing the Texans to victory. That's a good trait. The question is going to be is that when they put everything on his shoulders, can he win games for them? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a hater. I'm not in that regard, but I just don't know what he's going to be. So, I mean, I guess I have no idea. I mean, to me, the South, I almost feel like I would just, right now, I would almost just roll the dice and see who's going to come up as the winner, because I can't choose one of them. But I'll tell you what, my really, maybe very unpopular opinion, Nick, I think an AFC West team is a wild card team. And when I say that, I probably mean either the Chargers or the Broncos. And when I say that, probably the Chargers.
All right. You want me to start this party now?
Go for it. Light this candle.
Right. Guys, I hope you enjoy the scenic route. That's what we're going to take here. And, make sure your tray tables are back for this 5-minute rant. So we'll just I'll go by AFC East. The Patriots right now, Jared Meadows having to start that thing from scratch. So if you're expecting them to make the playoffs, that's going to be a tough part. You look at the Jets. Here's the reality about the Jets. Nobody really knows what Riddick's going to do and if he's going to show up. So first, that's going to happen. Then Aaron Rodgers is going to have to be healthy when he looks like he's been hobbling around at some of the practices when you watch him move around there and everything. So that Achilles, we'll see what ends up happening there. But I think the Jets are going to go as Aaron Rodgers is able to carry them on their back. But I think the Jets are too dysfunctional overall. And I don't think that they have a very stable franchise. Once Rodgers is done in New York, that whole house of cards is going to fall apart. Like that's going to be the end of that one, and they're going to have to clean house on that one. It's just a matter of does it happen after this year or the following year. Rodgers will determine that part of that. The Bills, part of me believes the Bills window is already closed. Like I feel like their best chance at a Super Bowl was last year against the Chiefs. And if they win that game, I think they had a very genuine chance to be able to move on and potentially, get in the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl. But they spending as much money as they did on Von Miller just backed them into a corner. And so they're thinking by getting rid of Stephon Diggs that's going to be the key to getting rid of some of that negative toxic energy. Like you and I talked about 2 podcasts ago whenever we were referencing Marcus Peters and trading and moving on from him. That's the same thing the Bills did with Stephon Diggs, but that's what the Vikings did when they're like, hey, you want a receiver? All right, Buffalo. And then, the Bills took it on for a while, and that's just how that one ended up working out. So ironically, Diggs is now with the Texans. So we'll see if he is okay with that role and he's okay with what he does in there for a year or two, or if it turns into another problem and then they play a game called not work here anymore. Like that's not a fun game, but could happen. Dolphins, we'll see how dysfunctional they are once they get to November, December. Because the thing about the Dolphins is the way that players it leaked out that they were complaining about Vic Fangio, who was one of the most disciplined coaches they had down there when you'd watch Hard Knocks from time to time. I just think there's so many. I just don't think Mike McDaniels is a leader. I think he's a guy that knows how to call plays and enjoys calling plays. But then the defense, NFL defenses catch up in December and January when it matters, and things go sideways for him. And I think they will continue to do so. And Anthony Weaver, I think being a first-time defensive coordinator, I think he's got his work cut out for him in Miami, trying to get those guys to pay attention to their playbooks versus the clubs in Miami, which I think is going to be a bigger problem for them than people realize down there. So I think the Bills are the most reliable in that division, but I don't think they have enough on the roster right now to really push them over the top if every team has all their players. If there's injuries, then you can throw everything out the window. AFC South. Go to AFC South. AFC South, Texans, I think, are going to be in the hunt. But the team that I think is going to surprise some people will end up being the Colts. I think it's between them and the Colts for that. The Jaguars, I think that's going to fall apart. So I just don't think Trent Baalke's a great general manager, and I think Doug is going to do everything he can. But with some of the stuff the owner said about the situation down there, he's trying to put some heat on him, and I just don't think he's going to be as patient as he should be. And I don't think the match of Doug Peterson with that GM is ever going to work out. And it's just, I think what I'm going to be watching from afar with the Jaguars is there a power struggle this year, and does somebody get bounced because of it if they don't win? So I'm going to be keeping Titans. They're rebuilding from scratch. AFC North, the Bengals are going to be, in my book, they're going to be the front runner. Bengals and Ravens are going to battle out for the front runner. It's going to be for the Bengals. It's going to be how much can Lou and Arumo get that defense back to who they were 2 and 3 years ago when they were doing well against the Chiefs. Can Joe Burrow stay healthy? That's the other piece of that puzzle. Those are the two big things that are going to kind of determine what they can or can't be. And then we'll see what happens with the offensive line in Cincinnati, because it's always struggled overall, and that kind of determines that. In terms of the Bengals, I mean, you're riding with Lamar Jackson on everything. Like you need Lamar to be able to play some of his best ball. And the question is, how big of a step back does the Baltimore Ravens defense take this year since they lost so many coaches on staff? I don't know. We'll find out in week 1 when the Chiefs play them. We'll get a pretty good answer pretty quick there. It doesn't mean that's who they'll be for the entire year, but it'll be where they're at for probably the first 5 to 8 games until they can get situated and get comfortable with what's going on in the league in general. But I mean, the Ravens are going to try to get Derrick Henry going and everything, but I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know if all of it combined is going to work out for Baltimore. And then Cleveland's Cleveland. So it is what it is on that. Dude, this is the 6th time this person's called me. Sorry. So there is that. In terms of the AFC West, I mean, the Chiefs are going to be king right now until there's some serious injuries. The Denver Broncos, I think Sean Payton's going to get them to respectable this year. I don't know if he's going to be able to get into playoff form. Antonio Pierce is going to have a loud bark. He's going to say a lot of noise. He's going to make a lot of noise, say a lot of words, say a lot of inspiring words in the press conference. We'll just see how it works out whenever they have to roll out Gardner Minshew as their starting quarterback, and how quickly defenses tear that apart. Because part of the thing is they had Josh Jacobs to lean on in the run game if they wanted to. They don't have that anymore. And then the Chargers just need the right leader, and Harbaugh is the right leader. So like whether it's this year or down the road, the Chargers are going to be the Chiefs' biggest threat, potentially in the AFC for a while. And like that's where Harbaugh is going to get the run game established this year. They're probably going to use a lot of play action. Justin Herbert's the right quarterback that Harbaugh can be able to work with and be able to be a threat across the board. They'll be able to be multiple if they need to. Defensively, I'm kind of curious to see what the Chargers will be this year, because I think they're going to have to replenish that defense through the draft on a regular basis. I think they're going to have to replenish the O-line. But the thing about Jim Harbaugh, is he knows who he is. He knows what type of football he wants to run. He knows what type of personalities he needs for his stuff to work. And so whenever somebody has that understanding like the Chiefs do, that's when you have a team that can stay dominant for quite some time. So, yeah, I mean, the Chargers are going to give the Chiefs a run for their money. It's just a matter of if it's this year or next year, or the following year. But I mean, within this time next year, I think Harbaugh is going to have the Chargers in a great situation.
Yeah, and I just can't bet against Harbaugh getting them to 500, and you get to 500, and all you just need is one extra win in this league, and you can be a playoff team. I mean, 10-7 was a playoff team last year. That's within striking distance for any one of these three teams. I think it's going to be tougher for the Raiders because I mean, you just wonder, is Antonio Pierce, did he benefit from the interim head coach effect last year? Did players play for him a little bit? Are they going to continue to be able to play for him? I don't know. Notable to me, I mean, I usually look at the second half of a season for a team can be an indicator about who they are next year. Raiders and the Broncos were both 5-4 in the second half of the season last year. So, I mean, if that tells you that they can be 500 teams this year, they were both 8-9 last year. I mean, 9-8. When all of a sudden you were one lucky bounce away from maybe the schedule going your way and maybe being a 10-7 team and moving on. So a lot can happen. Cody, hat tip, Demetrius Underwood was the first rounder that was cut from the Vikings in training camp of 1999. That is correct. He young man unfortunately suffered from bipolar disorder and struggled with a lot of problems, and Vikings moved on. Some other teams tried to make it work, but never quite did. But good recollection there, Cody. That would be the one that we were looking for. So good job. Appreciate the help there. Darren, this is an interesting one, and one that, we're probably going to be talking about a lot during training camp at some point. Do you think we will see players wearing the helmet guardian caps during games this year per the rule change? And I've heard a little bit of players talking about it, and then some media questions, Nick, not a ton. I think we're going to get a lot more in training camp and once we get into the preseason. But you got any thoughts about this and the players now have the option of wearing those guardian caps?
I mean, we'll see, but I mean, most of the players you hear from about it, like they don't like wearing it. It seems for the most part they're not big fans of wearing it. And as you remember, Jason Kelce put bubble wrap on top of his head. I mean, look, I could see it being something that maybe a guy coming off a concussion or like in the past of like Kevin Boss, who had 4 or 5 concussions before he even came to Kansas City. That may be something where you really do want to have that protection for one of those players. But then if they're one of the few guys wearing them at times, then, that I hate to say it, but then they become a target because you're like, okay, that guy's wearing that because they want to protect their head. And so this, we're going to deliver the proper shoulder in the spot to where it gives them whiplash and maybe they don't play the rest of the game. And that doesn't mean that doesn't happen. It happened more in the 90s than it does now, but you can't rule it out with some teams, and some mentalities of some defenses. But I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But I don't think it's popular at this point for guys to be wearing them on a regular basis.
Yeah, I am kind of curious about that. I wonder if it's going to be something that maybe we do see players who've had a history of concussions. Maybe they're more likely to wear them than maybe others who are not. If a player suffers a concussion, maybe they're more likely to wear it coming back, just hoping that something to give them a little of extra protection. I'll be interested to see. I mean, I'm with you. I get the sense that I don't think a majority of the players will be wearing them. I mean, it might surprise me to see how many do wear them. We'll see, but I would be interested in getting some thoughts from the players, at least during training camp, to see what kind of the consensus is and if there's been a lot of discussion or thoughts on it, or if it's just even a non-factor for some players. Peacemaker, been trying to think of a comp for rookie safety Jaden Hicks while watching his film. Does he remind you of a mashup hybrid of Bernard Pollard and Donnie Edwards? You probably watched a little bit more of his film than college than I have, Nick. Do you have any thoughts? I mean, is there a good comp for you for Jaden Hicks?
From a size perspective, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with Donnie Edwards from sort of the size perspective. I mean, Donnie's probably 10, 15 pounds heavier than Hicks was, but you could say he's a similar build in that style in terms of height and weight. I think that's in the ballpark. Bernard Pollard, not necessarily. Bernard was a lot slimmer from a size perspective. And I think Hicks has a different hitting style than what Bernard did. And so, yeah, I mean, when you're using those two, I get it, but I don't know. I'll be curious down the road what some people think whenever they get to finally watch them in preseason games. Just because I think the first thing is going to jump out to a lot of people if they go up when they go up to training camp, or if they go up to training camp or watching a preseason game, just his size is going to jump out at you. And like, why is that linebacker back there? You're like, oh, that is not a linebacker.
Well, it's very interesting because the two players he brings up into comparison, both those guys, Donnie Edwards and Bernard Pollard, both of them were just under 6'2", and both of them were 224 coming out of college at either their pro days or the combine. Not that far off from Hicks. I mean, Hicks is kind of in that same ballpark. He is just under 6'2" and a little bit lighter, 211. So like you said, I mean, both those guys are a little bit bigger. I think also it wouldn't surprise me if Hicks puts on a little bit of weight. The Chiefs seem to, I think, feel like he can maybe play a little bit heavier. And they're talking about him being a bigger safety, and he's not, in the ballpark of some other safeties that are out there around the league. But yeah, I mean, I can at least see from a professional workload. I mean, if you're the Chiefs, and I told you that Jaden Hicks was going to be that kind of player, that he, would have kind of an ability to mimic both those guys and play at least kind of similar roles. I mean, I think Chiefs would be pretty happy with that, because clearly they think that he's a guy who can play in the box. They think that he can play downhill. He can be a pass rusher. He can be a blitzer. I mean, there's a lot of things that they think that Jaden Hicks can do. And so
what's the most important thing he can do, Matt?
What's the most important thing that he can do?
That they need on this roster, because it went to the Saints.
What do you need, a juice guy?
Spy.
Oh, yes.
The Chiefs do need a spy.
Chiefs do need a spy. Jaden Hicks would be good at that.
Oh, they don't need it. They've already got it. They drafted it.
They've got it. They drafted it.
Jaden Hicks. Like, he's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the athletic ability to do some damage.
I should have remembered that, because I'm the one that says that I want to see Jaden Hicks take on Josh Allen and see what happens when those two collide in midfield.
Well, I think you may be afforded the opportunity. Both of them are healthy at that point.
I think Josh is going to get a surprise the first time he runs into Jaden Hicks. That's all I'm saying.
I think a lot of people are going to get a surprise when they run into Jaden Hicks for the first time. Because, again, you're going to see him out there. Because, okay, for example, like, they have Drew Tranquill listed at 234, and then they have Jaden Hicks listed at 215. I'm telling you, Jaden Hicks is bigger than Drew Tranquill out there when you see them on a football field together. Like, you're like, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if those numbers are exactly where they're at.
Yeah. Casey Harrell, there was some backlash with Joe Burrow coming out in favor of an 18-game season. If they give up a preseason game, would players support going to 18 games? I don't know. I mean, that seems like it's going to be a pretty divided decision to me. What do you think?
Well, the reason you're saying is Burrow's receiving backlash is because, as Chase Daniel put out there on Twitter, like, there's likely already people from the NFLPA. They're like, dude, why would you give leverage away to the owners like that, man? We didn't need that, especially from a star marquee player like that, to put that out there. Why are you doing that? So, I mean, that's where the reality of that potential backlash would come from. But, I mean, yeah, I mean, they're not – basically, at the end of the day, the preseason games, for the most part, what they're getting at, they've already taken one away to make the 17th game, and they'll probably take another one away if they do go to an 18-game schedule. I mean, that's just what they've been setting up for a while, because they're going to make more on their TV package. They'll make more on concession. They'll make more on parking. They're going to make more profit based off that. Now Burrow throwing in the whole, bye week. Everybody has the same bye week, and maybe you do the Pro Bowl during that time. I don't think the Pro Bowl is not going to matter. But, I mean, if you gave every NFL player the same week off, like, it, the same week off where everybody's got the same week off. Like, I mean, the reality of that is that, like, the NFL is not going to like it, because the NFL is going to want to use that to send people overseas. Like, like where you take a little time and then you send a certain amount of teams go play overseas at multiple different spots is what they would probably have for in mind with both those bye weeks. So they're going to want to put those at wherever they feel like versus one universal bye week, which would be the equivalent of MLB getting ready to have the All-Star, the All-Star bye or the All-Star week coming up here to where the Home Run Derby is going to be next Monday. Then you have the All-Star game on Tuesday. Then teams aren't back till Thursday or Friday. So you could potentially do that, and I totally get that and everything. I know he's saying the same thing as what they do in the NBA and MLB, but players want to get away. They do not want to. They do not want to be attached to going to a. Now if they put the Pro Bowl back in Hawaii, I don't know. Then maybe players can turn that into a family vacation type of thing during a random week of the year like that. Then that's a possibility where it's going to be winter in other spots. Like I think that's the only way players would be in favor of something like that.
Yeah, I think the party line NFLPA explanation would be we'd be okay with going to an 18-game schedule, but we need the revenue split to go from 52-48 to owners to at least 51-49. And then frankly, I think they need to be pushing 50-50. But because that's the other part of it too, is that you think about all the shenanigans that the Chiefs schedule is going through this year, with playing on every single day of the week except Wednesday, and these new windows that are being created for Netflix and for Amazon and Black Friday and Christmas Day and all of these, players aren't getting paid extra. They make a little bit more because once again, they get 48% of the 52-48 revenue split. So if the owners create and the league is able to create more revenue, they get a little bit of that pie, but they're not getting any more of the pie. And that's where, if you're the labor, if you're the players, you're kind of like, wait a minute, if we're going to continue to do all of this, we need a bigger slice of the pie. And Joe Burrow's comments, you're right. I have to imagine that there's any number of people at the NFLPA who just wanted to beat him over the head with a stick after that. And I just was, I don't know. I was trying to go figure out what was going through his head, because I'm fairly certain that if the NFL gave everybody off in week 13 to play the Pro Bowl game, I am guessing there is no way on God's green earth that Joe Burrow would play that game. I'm guessing that Joe Burrow would be, you know what, shoulders acting up. Yeah, I'd love to start that game. I know I got voted in, but tell you what, yeah, I'm not feeling well. I think you'd see 50% of the league coming down with some sore knees, sore shoulders, sore problems. Nick, hamstring, can't go. Sorry,
travel problems.
Yeah, gosh, because.
Couldn't find a babysitter.
No, there's not anybody in the league who would, except for guys who know that they would otherwise never make a Pro Bowl, would want to play in that game. Much less, take a week like that and go and spit it away from your teammates and, do some of the shenanigans that baseball does. It's great. I love baseball's All-Star game, but we need to just give up on the Pro Bowl. It's time to pull the plug and just move on to me, but I'm not in charge. And thank God Joe Burrow's not in charge of anything either.
Until there's nothing that's profitable about it, they'll keep trying it.
That's right. Kathy, is there a possibility we don't see Worthy? I haven't heard anything of any long-term concerns with Xavier, but we're going to find out next Tuesday, Nick. We'll get Andy Reid. So we're 1 week away, at least, from less than a week away, because right now by the calendar, we'll find out from Andy Reid Xavier Worthy's status and kind of where he is health-wise, and then maybe as early as next Wednesday, see him on the field.
We saw, if you looked on social media, he had a video of him, I believe, getting engaged the other day, and he seemed to be walking okay. So
there you go.
So I don't know. I don't. Is there a possibility? You and I can't say zero because we're not involved in the trainer possibility of the trainer realm of it to know what's exactly 100% definitively going on. But I would be stunned if he's not practicing and a part of it. I can already tell this stigma is building already on him. That since he didn't practice in OTAs and most of OTAs that we got to observe in minicamp, that now he's just this injury-prone human being. So Like at the end of the day, I just want to remind people what matters for the Chiefs is getting to the playoffs and then having everybody you can healthy when the playoffs start. So sometimes you gotta be okay with not winning the battle to win the war. And the Chiefs have learned that over these past 5 to 6 years. That's why they have a dynasty now.
Yeah. I mean, that is the one thing that they at least have going for them with Worthy is that they don't have to push him. He's going to be a piece for them this year. They don't have to push him too hard, though. I mean, they're not in a stat where they have to have him. I mean, if you had to take it easy on Xavier Worthy and ease him in, I honestly would be fine with that. I think that this team should be comfortable with that because there's no scenario that, well, I want to say there's no reasonable scenario. I mean, there's some crazy scenarios where 3 guys get hurt and 1 guy gets suspended and suddenly, you need Xavier Worthy to play as many snaps as possible. But the reality of it is that, I mean, to me, look at how they used Tyreek his rookie year. I mean, that's a pretty good model for how you could use Xavier Worthy. I mean, throwing out some of the maybe backfield stuff. I don't think you're going to have Xavier Worthy running traps or off tackle or anything. But other than that, I mean, remember Tyreek's usage increased throughout the season. They, built upon his role. But early on, Tyreek had about 3 plays that he ran. I mean, that was it. I mean, there wasn't much else to it, and they just slowly built more on him as he could handle it. I mean, that's the way X is going to be this year to me too, is that he's going to start out with a smaller role, and the more he's able to handle that, bigger and bigger his role is going to get. And if a Tyreek year and has 530 odd yards or something, that's a fine year for X. I mean, last year with Rice was an outlier. That's not what rookie receivers usually do in an Andy Reid offense. And that was because a bunch of guys didn't perform and they had to have Rice play a bunch of snaps. I mean, you're hoping not to be in that same scenario this year because in theory, you've got guys like Hollywood and now Rasheed and you've got, more depth. So you're not going to have to depend on a rookie that much, but we will see. Your mileage may vary, Nick. There, I threw it out there for you.
Yeah, you gotta have at least one reference to show.
KC Chiefs 12. I watch a lot of Chiefs YouTubers. The popular opinion that I'm seeing is that Kingsley wins the left tackle spot over Wanye. Rookie left tackles usually don't start their first season. Am I wrong? I mean, not wrong that a lot of left tackles don't start, but
here's my counter question to KC Chiefs 12. Is what tell me who all the Chiefs YouTubers are you watch. List them for me in the comment section. I'm curious to hear about them. Here's the reality, and I'm just gonna blow past it here for you. It's not necessarily a popular opinion. It's the fact that when Matt and I were out there and people started reporting about Wanye Morris playing some at left guard, people are like, oh, okay. So like that means, people attach that and assume that means things aren't going well for him at left tackle and they're moving him around. And you're only doing that if Kingsley's going to start. And then also some people are assuming based on Kingsley being a 2nd round pick and hearing the positive stuff on him, that means that he's going to be the left tackle. I don't think anybody knows. I think the Chiefs coaching staff probably may like what they see. And they're hoping when the pads come on, that he'll be able to turn into what they envision him being, and that maybe the case may not be the case, but they're going to give both them the same opportunity to see who can potentially win that battle. And then if nobody wins that battle, as long as Donovan Smith is out there, there's a possibility that they may call that bat phone and put up the bat signal for him for him to show up to Chiefs training camp at some point. Like if it doesn't go that well, and if that doesn't go well, then you have your answer that, their starters is probably going to be Donovan Smith once he gets up to speed. So we'll see. But I don't think there's any definitive way, shape, or form right now to be able to say that who's going to be the starting left tackle. I have no idea, and Matt and I have actually got to watch the OTAs. And why I don't have an idea? Because the shoulder pads were never on. And for an offensive lineman and a defensive lineman, those are the most crucial things, because for people that don't know, the number one thing you get taught as an offensive lineman growing up is you treat their shoulder pads like a steering wheel. So you grab a hold of those things inside the framework, you lift them up so that they can't move around, and you drive them like a steering wheel. You take them left, take them right, 10 and 2 overhand. No, I'm just kidding. You don't do that part, but you do keep it. You do keep it there and try to drive them around. So I mean, in the NFL, is that the way that it always works out? No, but is there holding on every single play by true definition? Oh yes. It's just, did you get outside the pad level to where you couldn't, outside the shoulders to where they couldn't move around and everything, then it does turn into a problem. But if you keep it inside the framework, it shouldn't be a problem. That they just need to learn how to either chop hands or get stronger.
And I mean, to me, we've already reached one deadline that the Chiefs have on choosing their adventure as far as the left tackle position is involved. If they were not happy with either Kingsley or Wanye after offseason and the mini camp, they've had a month, 3 weeks now to say, you know what, these guys aren't working. We need to call Donovan Smith now. They haven't done that. So clearly they're comfortable enough where they are to go into camp and see where they're at. To me, like I said, I keep saying, I think August 1st is my next soft deadline, is that if you go to August 1st or Donovan Smith signs with somebody else first, either one of those two things happen, then I think the Chiefs are saying they're happy with one of these two guys. Maybe it'll be over with quickly. I don't know. I would say that when the Chiefs drafted Kingsley on draft night, I would say that their best case scenario at that point was that they felt like they drafted their left tackle. They didn't know. They still don't know how it's going to unfold. So you're right. I'm with you, Nick. It's what happens when the pads come on. How do these guys look? One of three things is going to happen. Either Kingsley's going to look really, really good. He's going to win this job. And it doesn't really, Wanye could look good too, but if Kingsley looks better, he's going to win the job. If Wanye looks really, really good and he looks better than Kingsley and he looks like he can handle it, he's going to win the job. If all three of them, if both of them don't look good and the Chiefs don't think either one of them can handle the job, they're going to go sign somebody. Is Lucas Niang a discussion? Sure. He's there, but we have not seen any indication yet at this point that the Chiefs consider Lucas for this year anything more than a swing tackle. Could that be a role for him? Absolutely. Is there, in the multiverse, Nick, is there one of these 14 million scenarios where Jawan Taylor plays left tackle and David Bakhtiari comes in and plays on the right side? I suppose there's that one out of 14 million scenarios where it happens.
But did you get all the Infinity Stones for the next Super Bowl ring?
But I didn't say Benedict Cumberbatch shake his finger, put one finger up and shake his hands or shake his head or anything. So, and I don't have all the Infinity rings. So no.
So it can't make the new Super Bowl ring.
So can't quite yet. We're still working on that.
So frustrating.
Rafik McKinney, who is going to be the backup linebackers? I think we're assuming here Nick Bolton, Drew Tranquil, and Leo Chenal are going to be your starters. So your backups, Nick. I think the depth chart's pretty cut and clear, but I could be surprised, I suppose.
I could say the catchphrase here right now, but I'll be nice about it.
Well, I think a little bit
until the pads come on.
There are some X factors because there's a couple of guys we haven't seen with the pads on yet. So, somebody could come in and surprise me. Curtis Jacobs, the rookie, your namesake, could come in and be like, wait a minute, this is the fourth best linebacker on this team. It could happen.
Should be. His last name's Jacobs.
Is it? But to me, Jack Cochran and Cam Jones, I think, are in a class by themselves. That's not to say I'm not trying to put them both in say they're future Pro Bowlers or anything. I'm just thinking they're pretty established as the fourth and the fifth guys. I think there will be some competition. Both of them could lose their jobs. There's going to be some competition in camp. Really, I'm curious to see about Jacobs. The Chiefs could keep six. They've kept six linebackers before. So, but I feel like at least right now, I feel like the top five is pretty not set in stone, but at least Jello for now.
I'm not. I just want to say this. I'm just gonna say, I think you are like the biggest Cam Jones fan. Like you're the out of all the people in the Kansas City Chiefs media. I think you're the guy that you soldier. You're Cam Jones ride or die, man. I'm not knocking it because we do at least have tape on him from the last game of the year to be able to evaluate.
You have tape,
and you do on Jack Cochran too. So you saw Jack Cochran in the Packers game. when they ran all over him. But I mean, you still saw it though. You still know what's possible or isn't possible.
But
And
as your
Cam
fourth
Jones,
linebacker, he's a really, really good special teams player.
Right. And so, I mean, look, I just want to see what Curtis Jacobs can do.
You need to see what Curtis Jacobs can do.
I do want to see what Cam Jones can do. And then I am intrigued to see what Swayze Bozeman can do, just purely from name alone.
The name is pretty awesome. I'm not going to lie about that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I'll say this too. I mean, there's my Cam Jones love is and I don't know if it's love. I think it's just let's put it this way. I am probably being influenced by the people I talk to and have talked to about Cam Jones, and that's enough to tell you right there that the Chiefs are really high on Cam Jones.
And I'm not knocking. I'm just saying, like, out of all the people, if somebody said, "Hey, I heard this guy talking about Cam Jones," I'm gonna be like, "It's Matt Derrick." You don't even have to tell me.
I should have brought this up earlier because Mizzou, after asking us, threw out his prediction. So he's going Mizzou. Say he. I apologize, Mizzou 19. I don't know that you're he. I have an affinity with you because I mean I'm going to just throw this out there, and this is, I mean I don't think anybody's going to be able to sleuth this one out, but I'm just going to say there was a time in my life, Nick, where I on message boards, which means you're going to have to go back to the 90s if you want to sleuth this one out. But there were some places where, you know, if it was like a college message board or anything like that, I would be Mizzou. And some place, there was one place where my username, I went the Joe Montana route because it was like, hey, what should I choose as my username? And my username was Chiefs 19. So Mizzou 19 kind of resonates with me here a little bit, but Mizzou 19, KC, Baltimore, Houston, and Buffalo division winners, wild cards, Indy, no gasp here. I mean, I think the AFC South, you know, anybody could be in the playoffs from that place. Miami and either Cincinnati or the Jets. The Jets, I can't jump on the Jet bandwagon, Mizzou 19, but everything else I can't criticize. I mean, and Houston's the only team I don't like. And I can't really explain why I don't like Houston other than I just don't have a lot of faith in the organization. I mean, I have to give them credit. They're moving in the right direction, and I get it. Stroud's the flavor of the month right now, but I'm from the show me state. You got to prove it to me.
Oh, look at Matt.
I'm whipping out the show me.
What about the mileage, Matt?
Hey, Justin said Stroud's better than Purdy. I don't know about. I mean, I think they're both solid game managers, but from a game manager standpoint, I'd take Purdy right now. But
well, you know what's funny about them is they both run the same system.
There's that.
Like that's what that system is meant for people to be. You play action off of it. There's certain reads you're supposed to do. There's certain ways the 49ers do it better because Kyle Shanahan got it passed down from his dad. Like he didn't even have to wait for his inheritance. It was just given to him. Well, his dad passed down to him how you use motion and formations to really set up defenses the way that you want. So, I mean, Purdy's got the edge and the ability to be able to attack a defense a little bit more than Stroud does right now because Bobby Slovic, who's the OC down for the Houston Texans, he was with the Niners for 6 years, but he hasn't been a part of that Shanahan tree forever. So, I mean, is Stroud maybe a little bit more talented? You could say maybe he's got a little bit of an edge over Purdy, but I mean, they're both still in the same system that highlights what they are, both as athletes and throwers.
Can't disagree with that. I'm going to go to Julia Guglia's question here in a second, but I've done a terrible job with getting to our member and super chat question. So, Clinton, thank you very much for the super chat question.
You, Matt.
I know.
We salute you. Salute you.
Greatly appreciate that. And into the super chats, you move to the top of the line, even if it does take me 19 minutes to remember that you're there. So I apologize, Clinton, but think Josh Williams turning the corner mentally. I think we saw a little bit of it last year, Nick. I mean, I thought Josh, one, had a good season, and two, I think you started to see the seeds of him becoming a pretty good player. And even if it may have been situational because Jalen Watson was coming back from the surgery, and also may have had a little bit of an injury during the offseason, and Najee Johnson's coming back from the ACL. I mean, Chiefs had no problems in the offseason putting Josh Williams in opposite Trent McDuffie and giving him a lot of work at the first team at that corner spot.
They're all going to get the opportunity to prove themselves. That's for sure. So, I mean, I'm not. I think that's one of the bigger questions is who among the three between Josh Williams, Jalen Watson, and Najee Johnson, who can be that number two? Then who has to be the number three? And how can they make it all work and come together? So that's going to be one of the big questions in training camp. And that's what everybody's going to keep tabs on that. And left tackle, how many reps did such and such get or snaps at this spot during team or that spot during team? And that will be something we will begin to find out on July 21st.
That is true.
Training camp.
I will say one of the reasons why I am kind of high on maybe Josh Williams showing a bit of a bump this year is because, hey, from a lower level, Fayetteville State, lower level of competition coming in, and he came in with the reputation of having a much higher athletic ceiling, but maybe just not enough experience and not enough high level competition, that maybe it was going to be another year. I mean, some guys, you see the jump from year one to year two, and and Dave Merritt, hey, he kind of challenged both those guys with Josh Williams and Jalen Watson last year, as far as, kind of trying to make that second year bump. But I think Josh Williams is one of those guys that could really be primed for the year 2, year 3 bump. If it's going to happen for Josh Williams, this is the year. I mean, you could say the same thing true for Jalen Watson, maybe a little bit less for Najee because coming off the injury, that's just a tough break. But all three of those guys are going to get a chance. But I will say this. I mean, Josh Williams, I thought has always been a pretty stand-up guy in the locker room. He always seemed to be a pretty thoughtful guy. So mentally, I think he's there. So we're just going to find out if physically, he's kind of grown into the role. Saibi, been a member for 6 months. Thank you very much for being a member. I appreciate that. This is a good question. I kind of want to touch on sort of a little bit earlier, but not precisely like this. How does the NFL ban on beer advertising impact Travis Kelce and Jason Kelce as part ownership and promotion of a brewery? And I have to admit, I mean, I'll have to research it a little bit to get into specific answer. I mean, I know that because I was talking about earlier, Nick, before you got here, that when I was answering some previous questions about NFLPA licensing, and that's how there are some beer advertisements that you do see and alcohol advertisements involving players because they get the licensing from NFLPA as sponsors. So some companies if a beer company is an NFL sponsor or the official beer of the Kansas City Chiefs or something, they can get NFLPA licensing to use those players in conjunction with your ads, which is why you might see the Jason Kelce or the Travis Kelce bobbleheads and beer, or the posters at Hy-Vee, with them on beer signage, that even though they can't endorse beer, the beer companies can get NFLPA licensing. There's nothing that prohibits an NFL player from investing in a brewery or a beer company or anything of that nature. My understanding is that there's only this distinction as far as them advertising it. I don't know how it's going to affect. I don't know if you've seen anything, Nick, that affects them specifically for doing something like that, but I'd have to know a little bit more about it and see. But I'm sure there are some limits, but I don't think that there's nothing that prohibits them from having ownership in something like that.
From what I witnessed on the New Heights podcast, when Jason and Travis mentioned it, I don't believe Travis couldn't promote it necessarily. I don't think Jason could do whatever he wanted, but
he's retired.
I don't believe Travis was able to really kind of chat about it or talk about it too much, or I don't think he'd be able to wear something if he's up at the podium, because that would cause problems for him and headaches. And I don't know if there'd be fines involved in that or not. Just like whenever you see Chris Jones sometimes have to wear a name tag, I think that's to cover up if it's something that's not a brand per se of what they would what the NFL is aligned with. So just like you don't see Mahomes wearing the Prime hydration drink when he's up there, but the sport coffee thing he wore during that podium for the first time because the NFL
doesn't have a competing sponsor. No,
they don't have a competing sponsor yet. So I mean, so that was something that he was able to do, and so I think it just comes down to, does the NFL have an official sponsor, or do the Chiefs have an official sponsor?
Yeah, and I want to give kudos, by the way, because we haven't talked about it. I want to give huge kudos to Texas Tech, because their unveiling of the Adidas off the football field by taking off the giant tape sticker at midfield was pretty good move. I got to give them that.
Mm-hmm. And for people that don't know, like I was talking about, there's some players whenever they go up to the podium, they have to put like a sticker or something on if it's not because I think it's Nike, right? The NFL is associated
Correct.
with right now.
Yes.
So if it's a non-Nike logo or something, sometimes they have to put the sticker on, or maybe put a Chiefs official hoodie or something like that on to hide what they may be wearing shirt-wise. That's not an official, if there's an official sponsor for it.
And some people have picked on me for picking on Chris. I've never thought of myself as picking on Chris. I've always just joked about it because Chris oftentimes doesn't remember until the last second. So we've had moments where Chris is going to the podium and he's like turned around to go get a sticker or something that he can put on his shoulder to hide the logo that he has on. Finally tuned, thank you for the super chat. Absolutely. Will the Chiefs-Texans December Saturday game conflict with Mizzou, K-State, or KU in the college football playoff? I'm absolutely convinced that if Mizzou makes the college football playoff, it will be at the exact opposite of Chiefs-Texans, because Mizzou, Nick. I've had a colleague that covers Mizzou who has assured me that if that happens, there's a Friday night window, and they're certain that Mizzou would get into the Friday night window. But honestly, I mean, we've got 3 teams, Nick, that could be in conversation for the college football playoff. And if all 3 of them make it, somebody's going to have to play against Chiefs and Texans.
First part is, let's see who makes it and then go from there. We're out here talking about December problems, man. I'm just trying
we've already met. I mean, we've already met one of the criterias of peak Mizzou. And I say this because I'm a Mizzou guy. I can talk about Mizzou being cursed and peak Mizzou. Any of you people who are not Mizzou and making jokes like that, you're gonna have to deal with me, because only I can make fun of my little brother, but you can't. That's how it's family. And I'm trying to be nice to the K-State and KU people. I'm acknowledging there's a chance you could be in the college football playoff. There's no chance KU is going to be in the college football playoff, but I'm pretending like it, Nick, because I'm trying to be nice. But there's nothing. The only 2 things that would be more totally Mizzou would be Mizzou high enough last year in the rankings to have made last year's college football playoff in the last year before there was an expanded college football playoff. And then this year, I mean, if you make the playoff, you're obviously playing at the same time as the Chiefs and Texans. I mean, that just seems to be like one thing. Or both K-State and KU make it and Mizzou doesn't. I mean, this is what happens to Mizzou, because our hearts are broken all the time. Yes.
Like, our hearts are broken all the time.
But I once again reiterate, if Mizzou wins the national title this year, I will streak through power and light. So
yeah, you've said that a couple times.
I'm standing behind it. I'm not backing down.
All right. Well, just as long as you got bail money.
Any thoughts on the college football playoff, Nick?
We'll see who gets there and go from there, man. Like, what people don't get right now is, like, I'm on PTO this week. So,
you can't worry about December.
I'm on PTO this week, so like I'm taking a mental break here for a couple days, and then once next week starts, for people that don't know, I mean, Matt, it starts for us next week. It's open to the public starting on Sunday, July 21st, the first public open practice, but there will be content being had before then, and but it's not open to the public, so it's like OTAs and mini camp in terms of all that stuff combined. But I know what my life becomes starting next week through February, both with high school, college, and pro. So like this is kind of That's why I have PTO this week, is this is the last hurrah where I will see my family whenever I want. We'll get to do whatever I want, and then not have to work it around a certain schedule or time. So like that's kind of where I'm at. So I mean, like, you're like, hey, I totally get the December thing. We'll see who the heck makes it and go from there and see what they do scheduling wise. But that's there's a lot of decisions I'm going to have to make, or a lot of hypotheticals I'm going to have to think of between now and then.
All right. We may not have enough questions to worry about it, but I am going to say lightning round, Nick.
You don't have to say lightning round because, you're Julia. We're good. I'm on PTO, Matt. We're good.
We're good. Baltimore fans have way too high expectations for Derrick Henry. Agree?
I mean, here's the thing. Baltimore's always been a power run game. So, like, that's what they're built on. Power run
guy
game
for them. Power
run game, play action pass. Here's the reality, though. After Henry hurt his foot and had the 400 carry season or whatever it was at that point, like, he's slowly, steadily slowed down to where giving him more than 15 touches in a game, you start to see a lot of the wear and tear. So, I mean, for Henry, the big part where you're wanting to get him going is in like a fourth quarter. Like, you're wanting to use the other guys to do that, and then you want him to punish the defense late in the football game as you've rotated your running backs through. So, and use your two tight ends with Likely and Andrews to really kind of set up that offense on what you want to be. So, I mean, we'll see, but there's a reason the Titans were willing to kind of let Henry go, move on from it and everything, and a lot of it is because his age and wear and tear is starting to show.
Yeah, I mean, he's not King Henry anymore. He's going to be 30 years old this year. So to me, I mean, he's already turned 30. So he's going to turn 31 in January. So that's, as Andy Reid would say, a dinosaur for a running back.
Like Andy literally said that.
I mean, he hasn't hit he's not hit the point where he's under 4 yards a carry kind of a season yet. And being with Baltimore and that line, it might rejuvenate him. I mean, maybe he could bounce back a little bit, but he's not Derrick Henry of old. I mean, this is not Derrick Henry at 25. This is Derrick Henry at 30. And if you're using him for 180 carries, maybe, I mean, maybe you can keep him, a little spry and everything, and you can get a little bit more juice out of him. But I'm with you. I mean, since the foot injury, he has not been himself. It's just the reality of the position. And I mean, I agree. I mean, he's one of those, he is a unicorn, but I don't know if he's Travis Kelce kind of unicorn that can, keep doing it well beyond reasonable expectations of his peak. So we'll see. I mean, Baltimore does seem to be the place where, stallion running backs go to retire and hit the pasture. I mean, if you're an NFL running back that's on their last legs and you want to see if you got any more juice, you go play for Baltimore. Mm-hmm. So, and if you're an NFL, great running back that's run out of juice and you fumble a lot, you sign with the Chiefs. Boom, boom. James, Steele, LRZ, CEH, Pacheco. Could this work in the backfield, Nick? You sound concerned.
I mean, let's be honest. We don't definitively know what the Chiefs have at running back after Pacheco right now. Clyde, can do some of the receiving part, but how is he going to do between the tackles? Is he a little quicker this year than he was previously, or is he still as slow as he looked? I know his internet blocking skills are really good. I don't know about.
Wow.
Yeah, I went there. Well, he's not gonna see it. He got us blocked.
Blocked, so not gonna see it.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. We'll see with Carson Steele because I mean, like, I don't know if they're gonna keep a fullback and re-sim it. We'll see because again, I want to see what happens when he has to take a hit and when he has to take multiple hits. Where he's at in terms of pass protection, and I want to see where all the running backs are at in terms of pass protection. So that's one of those things right now that, like, I need to physically be able to see it with shoulder pads on to be like, yeah, he's good. He's got work. Oh, boy, that's not good. So, I mean, those are normal assessments in that regard. So I need to physically be able to see that first.
Yeah, I mean, we don't. We really don't know what they have in Carson Steele, and technically, we don't have what they have in Luis Rees-Zammit yet either.
No idea.
And I even think that even if Luis Rees-Zammit is a find, I still think he is 90% gadget player as a rookie. I mean, to me, I mean, I think if you're an NFL team, I just don't see how you go into a season or through a significant part of the season without three legitimate running backs on your roster. I understand if you got some, stash in the practice squad, maybe that's how you get away with it. But I mean, I think if you're an NFL team, you want to be able to know that you're going into any given week and you've got three guys that could be your bell cow running back that week if needed. And I don't know that at any point this season that you're going to know and believe and for sure that Luis Rees-Zammit is capable of 20 carries in a game if needed. I mean, it's totally new for him. Do I trust him and believe that he can go out there and play 20 snaps and do what he's asked to do in a specific niche role? I mean, based on what I've seen, yes, so far. I mean, I need to see what happens when he gets hit a couple of times, Nick. I mean, we talked about that. Andy Reid's talked about that. But so we still got some things to figure out. I'm with you. I mean, we don't know after Pacheco and Clyde exactly what they have for sure. Michael, estimated split on kickoff rips with Reed and Butker, 60-40. I don't know, Nick. Do you have a guess at this point?
We're going to need to see training camp how many reps Butker takes on a regular basis with the kickoffs versus how many Reed takes versus how many Rees-Zammit takes. And I personally, part of me thinks that they're Tobe having them do that wants to, one, get them reps if there is a situation emergency wise, but two, give them different types of kicks so they get to experience different types of kicks. So it's not just the Harrison Butker spot on every single time that, a kicker is expected out of themselves versus, hey, another NFL team may not have the most accurate kicker. So we're going to give you one of these guys that's not a true, that's their focus of their craft and kind of let you experience different types of kicks. And I think that's part of what they're doing, but I think people are kind of associating that and saying, okay, that means that this is exactly this, but I don't think that – I think people are reading a little bit too much into it right now versus what may happen in a game.
Yeah, I'm of the same philosophy. I mean, really all we have is some, brief remarks, at least at this point, from Dave Tobe talking about how, Butker's your guy if you need to put the ball through the end zone just to make sure it's a touchback and you don't want to return, or maybe Butker's the guy if you need the ball in a very specific location because Justin Reed, he's a good kicker. Harrison Butker's a great kicker. And Justin doesn't always know where the ball's going. So,
And here's the other thing you got to factor in with Justin is he's going to be playing on defense. So his leg is going to be it's going to have a little bit more wear and tear to it in each game purely because he's out there trying to tackle people and having to drop back into coverage and do a whole bunch of other activities versus Butker that's on the sidelines purely saving the leg for kicks.
Yeah, I think it's remains to be seen. I'm not sure that I've got enough information to really say definitively what Dave Tobe and the Chiefs are going to do for sure. Michael, kind of a follow up here with the previous pass running back discussion. Does Carson Steele have enough pass pro in catching to be the number 2 to relieve Pacheco without losing energy like CEH does? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, as a rookie coming in, it's hard to have enough experience in pass pro to be a reliable pass protector.
No,
as a rookie. The next rookie I see that's a good in pass protection won't be the first one, but it'll be a rarity. Am I wrong?
The best guy I ever saw from a pass protection perspective in a Chiefs training camp was Spencer Ware. Second best was Jamal Charles. Those two could take people's heads off, and they stop people in their tracks. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire has enough experience. He knows how to do it, and he's capable of doing it. Pacheco is – I think Clyde's probably a little bit further along than him, which makes sense because Clyde's been in the league longer. But to be able to gauge where Carson Steele's at right now with the linebacker coming at him, again, until the pads come on and we get to see the one-on-one linebacker versus running back drills and some of the team whenever they're doing either simulated pressures or certain blitzes or everything, and get to see that in 11-on-11, until you see all that stuff combined, like, it's a question mark for everybody. And the coaches on staff too. I'm not kidding you.
I cannot disagree with that. Scrolling. Apologize, everyone. Trying to multitask. Not very good at it. Trying to remember how much did Fish start at left tackle as a rookie? Because didn't he play a little bit of right?
Brandon Albert was the left tackle.
That's what I was thinking.
They put Fisher at right tackle. Then at one point they took him out and put it was either Jeff Schwartz or Donald Stevenson, because those two guys were the ones that kind of, and Schwartz may kicked in to right guard at one point and Stevenson went to right tackle. But yeah, Fisher wasn't the starting left tackle during the Chiefs 2013 season. That was Brandon Albert's final year here, if I remember correctly, and then Fisher kind of took over because Brandon went to the Dolphins pretty soon after.
There you go.
That's just off the top of my head. I don't.
Casey Sal, will FAU make a jump this year and work into the rotation? I mean, I think he will, Nick. I mean, we're going to see, but I mean, played a lot early last year. I think he did okay, and Chiefs are absolutely going to count on him this year because they don't have a huge amount of numbers at that defensive end position. I'm
curious who Casey Sal is. I have questions.
You got questions?
I do. I wonder if it's somebody that I know. I'm curious. I'm curious if that's the same Sal I'm thinking of that would be related to Severio Acapinti or not. I don't know. But to answer the question, you're hoping he makes the jump. The biggest thing that you need to see from Felix is how can he disengage from blocks and run support. Like, if he can do that, then he's going to see the field a lot, and he's going to be he's going to be a potential pass rusher and everything. But if those things don't occur, then that's going to be the bigger question. Is because for people that don't know, if you remember Josh Jacobs' long run against the Chiefs in that game, Felix wasn't able to get off his block, and that was a big part that opened up that hole. And then they couldn't get it to him at the second level, and then things went sideways from there. But it's neither here nor there. That's just everywhere, Matt.
I apologize. I'm chuckling while you're doing your answer because I'm trying to look for more questions and I'm reading through the comments, and the comments have been just absolutely hysterical and on point tonight. So kudos to everyone.
What happened?
I mean, there's a lot going on. Once I reiterated my Mizzou national championship streaking threat, and I mean it applies to any NCAA Division I championship sport. It has to be team sport.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, it's not going to happen. I mean, I know Mizzou. Hey, Mizzou won, Frisbee golf national championship. They won a chess national championship. Doesn't count. I mean, and we've had wrestling national champions. Until the whole team wins national championship, doesn't count. But if it happens, and I mean, there's several comments, but I think Luttrell had the big one there. I mean, I would have to have a Guardian cap on if I streak through Power and Light. So,
Matt, I don't know if you saw, if you'll get rid of the question part, we have a special guest.
I do see that
has just joined.
We got no clue. You can't until they put pads on. I mean, guys look different with shorts until they go.
That's it, Matt.
That's it.
Thank you.
We do what we can here.
I deliberately keep that on there.
Until I find the next question, I'm just going to put up Gary, reminding everybody to hit subscribe, hit the like, hit the bell, hit all those fun things, because if you do that and you help people find the podcast and you help you find yourself find the podcast and everything here on the YouTube channel, I greatly appreciate it. So you are all the best. And Gary, always appreciate you getting the word out there. Let's see. Now we're getting to the streaking part. So we might be at the end. We had a couple of questions along this line. So I will go. This was where I was supposed to go next anyway. What player is Tobe's guy who makes it no matter what? And who are Tobe's guys this year? That was, Finally Tuned asked both those questions. So
that is something that we normally start to find out around the first preseason game or after the first preseason game when Dave Tobe gets asked specifically at the podium, who are some of the guys who are really showcasing themselves, and then he mentions 4 or 5 names, and then those get marked down as people that may make the 53.
I mean, obviously, he's given Remigio the kiss, so of being one of his guys for the return guys. Him and he's been happy with Reese Emmett too, so he's given him the kiss. Let's face it, that's one of the reasons why I've got Jack Cochran's going to be on every 53 I do, because he's a Dave Tobe guy. So there's some others. There's a few others. But, that's the thing is that, I go back again to just the way that the roster construction is now. And, there's Dave Tobe gets to have a few of his guys on the practice squad too. So I could really see them. The Chiefs could have 3 or 4 guys on the practice squad this year, especially with the new kickoff rule that could be almost a rotational, week to week. That one week it's Deion Bush, and then, Cole Christensen gets his love. And there might be some other guys that mix in there too that you could just bring up on a week to week basis as some special teams players. That does let you keep some of those extra guys around when you get that expanded practice squad now. So, and especially the call-ups and being able to activate guys 3 times a year. So we will see.
You got 1 or 2 more questions left, I think.
You scroll on down and see them. So I'm.
Yeah, I think I counted. Yeah. You got 8:58, and then you had one at 8:12, and then you had one at 8:58.
Oh, 8:12. I saw Sharon's there at 8:58. The thoughts on free agent signing. I haven't seen anything that's heavily on the radar yet. There is a roster spot that the Chiefs could be. They could, and I certainly would expect them to add someone before the camp opens. So in the next week, they've got a spot to fill. Does that mean it's going to be a veteran? I'm not sold on that. It could be certainly even be somebody that's been on the team before. They've let through a player or two here that could come in. They had some defensive linemen that were in for tryouts at the end of the veteran mini camp, the mandatory mini camp. So there's obviously it could be door number 3. It could be somebody else that they just want to take a look at. So nothing heating up yet, but it would not surprise me if in next day or 2, or certainly the next week, we get something that with the Chiefs at least round out the 91 players on the roster. But nothing that I have heard specifically yet, Sharon. And looking, where did I miss it at 8:12? We've got.
Was it did we do the Leo question? I don't remember if we did or not.
Oh, we did not. Why doesn't Spags utilize Leo more in a downhill role like he played at Wisconsin? He was a beast coming through the middle.
I think a lot of it personally just had to deal with what some of the sub packages they were running. I think they liked having the versatility they did with the safeties and defensive backs out there. So if you're not going to use them as a linebacker in that, how are you going to? You're primarily using them from a base perspective, linebacker wise. So if you came up with a sub package like a NASCAR package, to where maybe he does get utilized but I don't think they're in a position right now where they felt like they really needed to potentially use Leo as a stand-up rusher. So I just don't think they're there yet, and I think that's why you haven't seen him do a lot of blitzing. And like I know you said he's a beast when he comes through the middle, but I just don't think there's a lot of blitzes that they've done to where he's on the field during that time to where they've utilized him in that way.
What I would be interested in seeing this year, because we saw a little bit of it last year, because Leo has been working on his playing more of on the ball out wide, and we saw a little bit of it, almost maybe in would you call it a wide 9 maybe position for him, where he has kind of lined up on the line of scrimmage. Because I know that they do feel like at least at the NFL level that maybe that's a better rushing position for him, is coming off the outside rather than coming off on the inside. So, and certainly when you put him in that spot, I mean, it opens up a lot of possibilities, because now you got a possibility of showing blitz with Leo and backing him off, and maybe you're coming from a different position. And we know, I mean, Steve Spagnuolo just loves to disguise where he's got blitzes coming or where the pressure's coming from. So the more that Leo can do is either a blitzer or a bluff, I mean, it's good. But Leo has worked a lot. I mean, I wrote about it last year about the fact that he works with Joe Cullen, and he's sometimes in the defensive line meetings discussing, the outside rushes and everything like that. So he's been putting in his time, and it wouldn't surprise me if they continue to expand that role for him this year. Where maybe when they are in some of their sub packages and there's only 3 defensive linemen, maybe Leo does play a little bit more on the line of scrimmage, at least lined out wide. So there you go.
Nailed it, Matt.
And Michael, for your question, I mean,
last call question.
There you go, last call. For us writers, they very rarely let us get on the field. And the Chiefs, well, I won't say anything bad. The Chiefs are perfectly fine. They technically don't let writers on the field at all. You have to have a broadcast pass, and sometimes they do let some of the writers get a broadcast pass. Can't see broadcast pass. But I didn't say anything. But there's some teams that will give us, on the field passes. So it varies. And I have not been traveling, Michael, for a lot of the road games. I probably will travel a little bit more this year. We'll see what is in the old corporate budget for me. And I say corporate because I set my own budget too. So, but if you want me to cover the more road games, just watch more videos. That's a big help. So I say with a laugh because that's technically against the YouTube rules. So.
Oh boy.
Not supposed to help people to watch more videos. So
oh boy.
There you go. Anything else to wrap up with? I don't think we have any more questions yet, Nick. So
yeah, hey, just remember there is original content out there, and you should support those.
Support original content.
Retweet those, let people know about them, and I emphasize original content.
Support your local sports journalist.
not aggregated content that came from other original places. So that's all I got to say about that.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Well, we went over the 2-hour mark, so if you watch this later, kudos to you as well. I mean, and if you're able to watch it on extra fast speed, that maybe even better. So helps you get through it a little bit faster. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great conversation once again. Next week, we're going to get to kind of actually start talking about real football, Nick. We'll have talked to real players and real coaches next Tuesday by the time we have this next Q&A.
And as a reminder, as you remember what I told you, I'm not going to be able to stay on as long on that Tuesday night because that'll be an early Wednesday morning.
There you go. So lesson next Tuesday, come in early to get your Nick questions, because we probably won't have Nick until 9:00 next Tuesday. So
you will not have me past. I'll be trying to wind down and go to bed at that time. And I left you a promo, Matt, just for you.
I saw that. I appreciate that. Hey, everybody, have a great week. We will see you Sunday on 41 is the Mic, where we're going to have our last recap before training camp starts, with some things to talk about that we need to keep an eye on going into camp. And then Tuesday night, we'll be back for the first big Q&A. I'm not sure. I might be in St. Joe for that Q&A, Nick. We'll see how the schedule works out and everything. But
really?
I might be coming to you live from St. Joe.
Oh, so really?
We'll see what happens.
You have piqued my interest here, sir.
We'll see what happens. Let's just say there's a lot of ththings going on next Tuesday. So
you have my interest, sir. So as long, don't forget to get rid of the question before you run the promo, because there's wording at the bottom we don't want to miss.
Yes. Everybody have a great week. We will see you on Sunday, and then you'll see us back here on YouTube next Tuesday. Take care, everybody. Have a great one.
It's all things Chiefs right here. 41 is the Mic, a Chiefs podcast on your home of the Chiefs. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts. Also available to watch on KSHB 41.